So Snape's black now.
Which he should be, because obviously, as is proved in the thumbnail, it says his face was black.
Fair enough. I guess I just wonder how this is going to affect the story and why they did it in the first place. Is this actually a good idea? To be this faithful to the books?
Of course, it's a good idea to be faithful to the books. That's what they said they were going to do.
But this faithful?
Well, he's British, so that means I'm okay with it. Okay, how long are we going to keep up this facade?
You know, he could have been a really great Kingsley Shacklebolt. It probably would have been a little weird to be Lee Jordan or Angelina
Jolie. Or, wasn't there was
Dean
a,
Thomas.
there was a Slytherin who was described as
Zabini,
having darker
right?
skin. Either Sabini or another one.
Belinsky. No, that's not a person. Never mind. I don't know who that is.
Draco Malfoy, obviously.
Yeah, because he.
I mean, he hasn't been cast yet. He could play both of them. He could do like a Parent Trap sort of thing, where he is simultaneously Snape and Malfoy, and like they're on a kind of like a very obvious green screen where they're just talking to each other. But when he's Draco, he just sort of crouches down a little bit,
and he has a blonde wig.
Yeah,
because he'll have to be, given a wig, because I don't think he'll want to actually make his own hair greasy, right?
I mean, if he's dedicated to the craft, I think he could pull it off.
Okay, let's just, skip to the chase, and this is obviously a terrible, stupid, horrible thing. Nothing against the actor personally, right? This has nothing to do with him. This has everything to do with those who are responsible overall for the show. And so if they're willing to basically ignore obvious, obvious facts when it comes to his description, and we can even use early J.K. Rowling, because she made sketches of Snape, and he is very much not black. And so this is nothing to do about race or really anything, at least not racial bias or anything, but it's just he was a white character, and so therefore changing him could really influence how the story goes with him, because sadly people nowadays can't really split fantasy with real life. For some reason, all these, I've noticed in a lot of recent things that, whenever stuff is made, right, basically, it's we always have to keep we can't just have a fun story. It always has to be referencing some modern day humbo jumbo. It always has to be a reflection. It's it has to be for a modern audience. And it's why can't we just have good stories, huh? Why can't we have good, timeless stories? There's a reason why people are going back to old stuff, and how really good stories, even if they were made 20, 30, 40, heck,
1,000 years
what
ago.
Was made 100 years ago? I guess we
Tarzan.
Tarzan wasn't made 100.
Well,
yeah,
you mean
the
book was?
Yes.
Sorry, I think of the excellent Disney movie. Okay, because we're talking about visual media, but it's well, funny enough, most recently, Snow White. The original 1937 cartoon was very well done. Anyone can enjoy it even today, and yet they decided to change it for a modern audience.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, it's not okay. That's the problem. Is it's not okay, and yet they still keep doing it. Okay, what do you think?
Well, I keep thinking of all the ramifications of it, because when we talked about this earlier, we had the kind of okay, well, what would happen if they made this character black? Because we knew that they would do this.
Well, they already made Hermione black, technically,
that's what I was saying.
Play.
There's the precedent has been set in the play, so if she's not cast as black, it'll be absolutely shocking, and I'm sure there'll be actual people mad about that, because people are weird. But, we were thinking about, it's okay, well, you make Hermione black, what does that mean, when people yell mudblood at her, and when, everybody, there's all these, awkward sort of things that will come up with when we were talking about all the different things that could, it's okay, well, maybe they'll do Ron. It's oh, well, replace the gingers. But then you have this super poor family that's black. That's kind of has weird connotations and stuff. Hermione, obviously, everybody calling her mudblood and all that. It's just okay, that's something. It's we talked about this for a lot of different characters. I don't think we ever even mentioned the possibility of them making Snape black, because it makes so little sense to make who is described.
Well, it doesn't make sense to change any character's race, because it has nothing to do with anything.
I think you could pull it off with some other characters that aren't quite as
impactful.
Yeah, you could do it. Maybe some of the other professors who aren't in it a ton. You could probably pull it off with maybe a Trelawney or Professor Sprout. That there's plenty of people you could do it to, or you could just have the actual characters that are. You could have the actual characters that are in the book that are black, because we just named off a few of them. There's not a lack of people of color in this story. I think if you wanted to maybe give this role to, or give this actor the role of one of those people, like I said, I mean, Kingsley Shacklebolt, he would have been great. He looks great for it. I think he could pull it off great. But yeah, so you make Snape black. It's like the teacher who everybody hates, who the staff sort of tolerate, but you can tell they don't really like him. The students are all terrified or hate him. Neville is literally petrified of this guy. So everybody hates the guy, and he's described in the book as particularly ugly in many different detailed ways, from teeth to hair to the quality of his skin. It's just very strange not only to make this a black guy, but a black guy who looks quite handsome.
Yes, you could say he has very good features for Shacklebolt.
So we've gone over a few reasons why this is a bad choice.
And so has most of the internet.
What are some potential pros?
Well, that's where you have the internet covered for you, because we actually have an article that goes over the casting genius of Black Severus.
Oh boy, I love being proved right.
Anyway,
So we were perusing and found this article, and it seems rather interesting because I had not really thought of any good points for this decision. So I am interested to see what they think about it. So we start out with them introducing the actor. They say that he is an accomplished Shakespearean actor who has played some of the most demanding roles in theater repertoire. He's being given a role that is already so controversial, and it seems that he's doomed from the start, no matter how...
Well, again, this has nothing to do with the actor. This has everything to do with the decisions of the showrunners.
I don't know. They didn't force him into this. He chose to accept
I'm gonna give him like 10% of the blame. Where it's like, you know, if he, like, you know, I've never heard of anyone doing this, but it's like, I guess there's potential that there could be an actor out there who loves Harry Potter and they're like, hey, would you like to be in Harry Potter? And you'd be like, oh, would I? And it's like, you can play this character. Yeah, but that character is like, you know, Hispanic or something. I'm not Hispanic. That wouldn't be true to the books and stuff. I'm not gonna do that because I have no reason to. I don't know. Like, I get you get like.
Oh boy, I sure love the history of the civil rights movement. I want to be in this movie that portrays the life of Martin Luther King Jr. Oh, how would you like the part of Martin Luther King Jr.? But I'm pasty white. It's like, oh, but we want you. It's like, oh, okay.
We believe that you're the best actor for the job due to your talent alone.
You can imagine how silly that would be. You have a white guy play Genghis Khan, you have a black guy play the Emperor.
Yeah, I guess in a better world, he would have refused this role and been like, okay, so can I play one of the other characters? Because I still obviously want to be in the show that's going to be humongous, right? Or, well, I don't know. Hopefully the show flops if they keep making bad decisions like this. But,
I can't blame him for taking a steady job for at least the next 10 to 15 years that's going to pay a lot. I do question his artistic integrity if he's willingly taking on this
did
role.
He apply for it specifically, or did he just go to Harry Potter character casting and they were like, okay, you check our diversity boxes, so therefore we want to put you in this role that, you know, could go to someone else, but we want to draw up controversy and we want to be what's the word, representative, therefore we'll have you be the worst person in the world. How do you feel about that? When we saw your acting, we were like, yes, you can play a child-abusing, dark magic-loving creep that probably doesn't do hygiene very well, as he's always described as having greasy hair.
Oh, no.
I just don't see how they're going to be allowed to make a black person look unattractive. I just don't think they're allowed to do that.
Yeah, who knows? They might try to do some crazy prosthetics on his nose or something.
Because I don't think they're allowed to.
Okay.
I'm just saying they'll have to do a lot because that guy's nose is pretty darn standard for the human face.
Okay, so if we go back to the article, though, we have that some of the problems that he admits that if Snape is black, that it will make the heroes racist, and it will do that. However, this author says that it won't, and it actually solves problems. So let's see what are the problems that it solves. His first is that there is continued popularity of the Warner Brothers big screen adaptations because everyone thinks of the movies. I guess I imagine them as the little pictures that are in the chapter headings.
Maybe. Like, I can
or
see...
on the book cover. Because we have the characters on the book cover. At least, well, certain book covers. I know there's several different types, but the ones
I
I know...
think that this first one is already dumb because, again, it doesn't matter if they've already had established actors who played them. That does not mean you should change things unnecessarily.
Yeah, you know, a huge problem for the Universal's Dark Universe was that everybody, whenever they hear of The Mummy, they think of the reboot of The Mummy, the one that came out in the early 2000s with Brendan Fraser and not the original one. And then, I don't think anyone can even remember the one that came out in 2017.
Well, that's because it was so pathetically bad that
So,
everyone was like, well, either no one watched it or everyone forgot about it because of how forgettable and bad it was.
So the obstacle that's portrayed in this article here is that people still think about the Warner Brothers one. So
because they're good? Well, I guess the first two are good.
If this TV show sucks, nobody's going to remember it. It's going to become the Dark Universe.
Well, they won't remember the actors, for certain. Like, they'll be like, oh yeah, so when I think of, Harry Potter characters, I think of the big movies that I have, either on DVDs or... Well, that's the funny thing, is that there's a lot of physical media. This will only be on a streaming service.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So, well, I don't know, it's HBO, so they might have it on...
Only if it's incredibly popular.
Yeah, so, I don't know. It's... Anyway, what's the second point they made?
The second point is that they need to do something different.
How about
without rewriting it?
An adaptation, a faithful adaptation that they advertised months ago.
We don't want to be different from the canon. Like, apart from, potential plot holes, they should not divert from canon. We want the original story that the movies couldn't give us. That's why the TV show should be being made. It shouldn't need to differ from canon. We don't want it to differ from canon.
There's a reason why people like Harry Potter. There's a reason why people like Star Wars, like Marvel. And it's really absurd for people who are making the versions of these things now to be like, we need to make it completely different so that people will like it. It's like, the reason why people are drawn to this is because it is what it is.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, highlight again, prior adaptations. So the prior adaptations, apart from the first two movies, which were easily the best, most faithful, right? Yeah. They did what they could, and they're pretty close to the books compared to the rest of the films, right? Those other films, some of them are so far off that it doesn't matter. Like, again, if this show is closer to the books, that will make them different from the prior adaptation. That will give them that advantage.
Yeah,
because again, the fifth one's like one of the worst, where the pacing is completely off and we lose out on so much character development. Sixth one as well. Just the fifth, sixth, and seventh, they all cut out so much story.
But the eighth one's perfect, right?
Yes, that's because it's a play.
So
No, the eighth movie.
Oh, I forgot they turned it into two movies. So I count it as the same thing because it's just put 1 and 2.
No, I know. So I totally agree. Making this faithful to the books would make it incredibly different from the movies, and I think it would be so refreshing to see some respect for the source material. I don't think anything in the last months, years, decade has been faithful at all to what it's either adapting or continuing.
Oh, I love this sentence down here. Black Severus lifts the TV adaptations from all these hurdles and have cleared for the show to excite fans around the world. Obviously not.
This is the only person I've seen actually excited about this.
Well, let's see what so he's given us a summary.
So, apart from the articles that, talk about it, where they try to make the obvious, I have heard some people who are just like, oh, it's perfectly fine because, colorblind casting and all that bullcrap, or, basically everyone who doesn't care about the integrity of the original thing are going to be fine with this.
Yeah, I think colorblind casting only really works in original stories where race isn't an incredibly important part of it. When it's an adaptation, even if race isn't important, it is important to keep characters looking the way that they are. That's the reason why people pay millions of dollars for these IPs, is because they want the fans who enjoy them. And it just seems strange to kind of just spit in their face and be like, oh, this is what we're going to do because we want to do it.
But yeah,
So
you wanted to point something out.
let's see. So he gives us his summary of 3 reasons. We want to be different from the big movies and other adaptations, and we also want to avoid real world issues with the author. So,
which you could easily avoid any issues with the author by just being faithful to the books, because J.K. Rowling also doesn't like her books somewhat. She's been trying to change the canon of it for, the past 20 years via, tweets and interviews and stuff like that. So, guess what? You could actually... it's kind of funny how you...
okay.
Basically, them being faithful to the books would be the best way to actually distance themselves from the author, because the author has tried to distance herself from the original story.
I think so.
Again, she was, behind. She was behind, Dumbledore being gay and Hermione being black. It's like she's been behind a lot of those stuff. Like, maybe not directly responsible of in some cases, but she's been, supportive of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to sort of play into that a little, a huge reason why they did want Snape in particular, or I guess the reason why they'd want a race change, a thing that we see a lot is that creators, producers, directors will hide behind the casting of a character to avoid criticism of their art in general. So when all the people, all the trans people, all the people who are frustrated at J.K. Rowling for varieties of reasons, when they go and they say, oh, this is awful, we hate it, or if just anyone says, this is awful, we don't like it for this and this reasons, whether or not those reasons are legitimate or unfounded, all the director has to do, all the producer has to say, all the studio has to say is, oh, you don't like it because you're racist against Black Snape. It's a shield that we've seen in countless things, Star Wars, Marvel. This is a very popular new thing, and I think it's cruel to the fans, it makes poor art, and it's cruel to the actors that they use as just meat shields.
They're scapegoats, where they're basically, oh, if you hate what we wrote, then obviously that means you hate the people who played them. And it's like, obviously, do we really need to throw out that shield of, please don't harass any people who are involved with this because the writing sucks? It's like, sadly, I guess we'll have to say that if we cover for this stuff when it comes out. It's like, hey, don't harass the actors because, apparently this is a problem. But let's just continue on with the
yeah. So I think
attempts to do
an interesting thing. So they say here that the previous actor was Alan Rickman, and that he was an amazing Snape. At least, yes, he was an amazing Snape.
I don't think he was an amazing Snape. I think he was iconic, but I don't think he's anything.
Oh, he is nothing like the book. So as far as he plays well in the movies for whatever movie stages.
He differed from the canon.
He was way too old. He was way too nice. He was like, did he do anything that was like particularly cruel or unusual in the books?
No, he was more petty.
He was petty, and
I mean, like he would just
smacks Ron and Harry with
because
books.
they're talking in classes, and this is the 90s in England. Corporal punishment was not only allowed but encouraged.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It was a lawless time in the 90s.
No, I agree. Where it was definitely nothing like the books. Well, very far from the books. Book Snape is far more vile and horrendous. So
half of me is like, he should have been a bit more, but then the other half is like, yeah, but he was actually pretty horrific, so maybe it was a kind of a, okay for them to change that aspect of the character, especially if they, if you think about how he's supposed to be slightly redeemed in the end.
I think it makes the redemption more complicated. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Okay. So here in the article, the new Snape becomes an outcast whom the viewing audience will see as both unfairly oppressed and worthy of their sympathies, however odious his behaviors. So my question to you then is...
Wait, do they mean that because he's black, that he is now sympathetic?
That was my question. In the books, was Snape not viewed as oppressed and worthy of sympathy?
Well,
at least in the 7th book, when we essentially get his backstory.
In the 5th book, when you see the part of the memory where he's like tormented by James, I mean, you can tell that bothers Harry a lot, and I feel like most readers are like, yeah, that was kind of messed up.
It's an important part of his character where, like, it shows, like, the potential maturity that he has, where it's like, even though he loathes Snape and, Snape has been terrible to him, he now finds out that his father was just as terrible to him for literally no reason, except the fact that he exists. Like, that does, that's part of his character. That's part of the complexity that you could give to Severus Snape. Where it's like, yes, he does terrible things, but that's because he fell into the pit of being mistreated, and unlike Harry, he wasn't able to get out of that. He just continued down that darker path, you could say. While Harry's a perfect representation of what Snape should have been.
How bad is that line? It's more the fact that he exists, if you know what I mean, gonna sound when you see this in the flashback in 10 years, 8 years.
Who knows?
Finally get to it.
But it's just
and the author here, he admits that. He says it's a signature. It is a signature new dynamic because of the whiff racism.
There you go.
And that it will rally people who like that sort of thing. And therefore will avoid the real world issues that the author might be involved with.
I think it was meant to target that. I think it was meant to.
Well, I just love what it says. It will rally the progressive fan base to his defense, as Black Hermione did of the Cursed Child. Wait,
that didn't solve anything.
When did really Black
the people
firstly, no one talked about the Cursed Child.
Yeah. But
it came out, it sucked, and nobody cared.
Yeah, but it didn't redeem J.K. Rowling's transness or whatever.
You mean anti-transness?
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't fix her public view in that very small sector of the audience.
No, so again, we're reading this article. Troglodyte's a fun word, though.
A troglodyte, German soldier of the 1940s that was under a certain regime.
I just don't see how this improves anyone's perspective of black people if they make the cruelest, most unliked teacher black. It doesn't.
Why didn't they make Flitwick black?
Yeah, that would have worked.
Because I don't think he's only described as short, right?
Well, don't you know that shortness is black coded?
Well, there you go. So it would have.
Lying.
Okay, so actually, I suppose even though we've been reading parts of this article, I'm still a little confused as to how it answers his questions. Because
look at his summary.
It's like he says that the problems were that people remember the Warner Brothers adaptations too much, that we have to do something different from canon, and that there's real life issues happening to the author. So then they're like, the solution is
the author, not happening to
the author. I apologize. It's happening in regards to the author. Is that with this new Snape, people will sympathize with him. It will be more nuanced and complicated, and that the Potter fandom elites who say that this show is not true to canon or try to distract people from the author's opinions of real life issues, they then become subject to criticisms as canon purists or racists. Sorry. Racists. There we go. There we go.
That's how the popular people say it.
And so I suppose, as far as I can tell, that doesn't answer my questions. He says that when they have Black Snape, people will just have different issues then. Instead of it being, it's not the movies, it's now that you'll be called a canon purist if you don't like it. So we've solved the problem. Anyone who doesn't like it,
the integrity of your stories to remain. How terrible.
Even if you didn't care about the integrity of your stories and you were super into diversity, why would you want this person played by a black person?
Yeah, at the end of the day, he is one of the
black. Wouldn't you? Oh, no, not Dudley. Who's the best people? Wouldn't
Neville?
You want? Yeah, Neville or someone kind. Maybe
Hufflepuff. We need
Cedric
Diggory. Nymphadora Tonks, just people who portray goodness. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're like, oh no, they can't only be good people because that's
they
also
could have Ravenclaws. They're the smart
it's all
ones.
just racist. Maybe just make the characters who are black. Make the characters who are undescribed. You maybe find the best casting, whether they're a different race or not. It's like
plenty of minor characters have the ability to be of a different skin color than white.
Okay, actually, right here, I think is the exact reason for all of this. It generates a huge buzz and discussion.
Yeah, and you know what that's going to happen is that maybe the first episode's going to have a ton of views. It's going to taper off from there. It's never going to get any higher, and it's just going to fizzle out and die. And nobody's going to care about this.
Unless they do something like crazy enough. Like, well, basically, unless the story is actually good, and it is just race swapping that is the most major thing.
Yeah, so with this one, all they're doing is a paint color change. It's like, if they make this exactly like the movies, it's just gonna be like, really? That's what you thought was the big change? For the audience that wants to see something completely new, it's like, is Black Snape different enough? And then for the people who want a faithful adaptation, it's like, it's obviously not. It doesn't seem like it appeals to anyone.
No, it only appeals to the people who want their checklist.
But how does this appeal to them? Why didn't they just make Hermione black? Because the precedent is
They're going to make Hermione black. Do you think they're going to make Harry mixed race?
Maybe.
Like, Lily could be black?
Oh, God. If they did that, that would be so silly, though.
Do you think that they are...
That's
hey
too silly.
Imagine the irony.
Oh, God. That would make the Dursleys seem so horrible. Wait,
Well,
but then they'd be black, though. Unless James is black.
You know, this... again, we're all talking about how this is going... this is going
just
to...
zoom in on imagine the irony.
They make Sirius black.
This could be a decent show.
Oh,
this
it
actor
has the capability of being decent.
This actor might be a very good Snape. Let's see what the future brings.
Let's just finish off this article with, so 3 cheers for the decision to cast, how do you say his name again?
Papa Isidro.
Papa Isidro, okay. I like his name. I will admit that his name sounds fun.
It's a fun name for Kingsley Shacklebolt. Or King Thomas's father.
But, the series reboot gets a world-class actor playing a key and very difficult role as Black Severus.
That's all he's ever going to be known as, Black Snape. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like, it is a real shame, because, again, like, part of me is like, don't really focus on the actor, they're just the one playing, but then the other half is like, he accepted the role, he knows what he's getting into, so therefore, like, I just don't think, again, he can't act like he does without people without the viewership judging him on that. And then if you say, oh wow, Snape is actually quite a terrible person, it's like, why are you saying that? Because he's black?
No, because he tortures children. I think the movies...
Well, that's the thing, like you said earlier, is that this is some stupid shield. Like, and for some reason they need a shield. It's like, no, they don't. Just make the story good.
I think the movies were really popular because of the adult actors. I think the caliber of those British actors, how good they were, I don't think the kids were all that great at all. I think some of their
kids were passable.
They're passable, but it's the adults, the ones who have the skill and range to like really sell this world. I think that's a huge reason why the movies are as popular.
Well, I think the kids. Well, again, when I say passable, I mean they sold. They sold like I can't really think of any. At least when they're super young, of being like, oh wow, that was a terrible line delivery. It's like I could believe, like the actors played their roles convincingly, I guess. Yeah. Because back then, kid actors could actually act.
No, what I'm saying is that they're chipping away at something that they can rely on. They don't know how the kids are going to develop as they grow up. They don't know how they're going to change, how that's going to affect things. But you got these adult characters that are going to stay relatively the same over the next 10 years. And they've thrown away one of their most important adult characters who has incredibly iconic moments. And I just, if he's the best Snape who's ever Snaped, it's still going to feel odd. Moments are going to be changed. Context is going to be changed. The way people see this is going to be changed. And it's really unfortunate for the actor, for the producers, for the audience, for the work of art.
Yeah, pretty much at the end of the day, I guess, no matter what the show goes, how the show goes, I'm going to keep enjoying the books because the books are good and I have them on tape. So I will just keep listening to the books. Even when this show is just a, hopefully long forgotten memory of just something that was kind of there and lame, most likely. Again, this is like a 1% chance right now. I'm giving it like a 1% chance that it could be like the best show ever, right? Like, what do you think? Like, do you think there's any, like, with this on the forefront, do you think there's any hope for this show?
There is always hope.
Wow, I'm that cringe.
Only if they make Harry a dwarf.